Move on to question 11. Call on the Honourable Member for Douglas South, Mrs Christian.
Thank you, Mr President. I'd like to ask the Minister for Enterprise what support has been provided to private sector employers regarding employment issues faced by people returning to work after a viral infection. Thank you, Mr President.
Minister for Enterprise to reply.
Thank you, Mr President, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for her question. The Department does not provide specific support to employers in dealing with workers returning to work after a viral infection, as it does not in the case of a return to work for any illness or injury. The Honourable Court has previously discussed a range of issues relating to individuals who are affected by ME and chronic fatigue syndrome and who may struggle to return to normal activities or paid employment. Whilst for many people COVID-19 infections may cause minor symptoms lasting a few days, these can be very variable and persist for up to 4 weeks in the acute phase. Ongoing symptomatic infection can last from 4 weeks to up to 12 weeks. It is important that affected individuals seek advice from their general practitioner to exclude other causes for their ongoing symptoms and access any relevant treatments or therapies which may aid recovery. The National Institute for Health and Clinical Excellence, NICE, has recently recommended the use of the definition of post-COVID-19 syndrome for those who continue to present with symptoms for more than 12 weeks, which incorporates the commonly referred to long COVID terminology. Fatigue can be a significant symptom following many acute viral infections, and it's very important that individuals take medical advice and have a phased return to normal activities, rather than trying to push through the fatigue, which risks triggering a relapse or worsening of symptoms and delaying or stalling recovery. All employers have a responsibility for the health, safety and welfare of their employees at all times, including in the period of any return to work following illness or injury. General guidance published by government in respect of COVID-19 stresses the importance of open communication between employers and employees, and I would encourage this approach. Should either party require further guidance on flexible or phased return to work, advice can also be sought from either the Health and Safety at Work Inspectorate or the Manx Industrial Relations Service. Treasury's Social Security Division also employs 2 disability employment advisors who can advise both employees and employers on reasonable adjustments which may assist a return to employment. Thank you.
Supplementary, Mrs Christian.
Thank you, Mr President. Perhaps the Minister could indicate to members here today where the general guidance could be found. That would be most useful. I would really appreciate that, and that the general guidance that comes from government that he's talking about. As he said, long COVID is a term which is used after 4 weeks if your symptoms continue and prevent you from doing normal activities. And the Office of National Statistics estimate that 1 in 5 people have symptoms after 5 weeks, and 1 in 10 people have symptoms for 12 weeks or longer. Does the Minister agree with me that the average recovery duration can be reduced through greater public awareness and clear messaging, which is really, really essential? And although he says he understands that we don't normally do that for any other scenario, we're in a pandemic, and actually this is really important that we take this seriously, and this is going to have a long-term effect on this government in terms of the public who suffer from this, and also the cost to this in the future. Thank you, Mr President.
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr President. And again, I thank the Honourable Member for her interest and her passion about this, this subject. The issue of long COVID and post-COVID syndrome are quite important, but there is still an awful lot that we don't know about this, particularly in terms of the long-term effects on people. In terms of how people can access this information, it's now available on the COVID-19 website under the Help and Support section. There's a particular section there in terms of return to work, which then gives links to all the other sources of information and more specialist advice that may be available. Thank you.
Supplementary, Mrs Christian.
Thank you. And I agree with the Minister that we don't know enough. But what I'd just like to highlight today is that other jurisdictions actually have included in their government plans a COVID health recovery plan to fund support areas such as long COVID. Perhaps the Minister could explain why this isn't included in our island plan. Thank you, Mr President.
Minister to reply.
Thank you very much, Mr President. In terms of the island plan, there is an emphasis there on integrated care. And in terms of treating any chronic conditions, whether they be ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, long COVID, or a whole raft of other issues, they will be dealt with through integrated care. One of the particular issues about post-COVID syndrome is that it can affect every individual in a particular individual way. There is a big overlap between the psychological issues that can be caused by COVID. We know, for instance, that those who are severely unwell and end up on intensive care are susceptible to post-traumatic stress disorder. And on top of that, we have the physical symptoms as well, whether they be fatigue or the respiratory symptoms caused by microemboli. So again, as I've documented in my original answer, Mr President, it's very important that medical assessment is accessed at quite an early stage in this process so that individuals can get the right help, support, treatment and therapy that they require. Thank you.